I truly believe that we live in a world right now where we are so disconnected from each other. So when I was young, my mum took me horse riding when I was about 8 or 9. And so what I first always wanted to do was be a riding instructor and teach kids how to ride. Once they understand the models of leadership that we can learn from horses, all of a sudden understand that they don't have to lead the business from the front, and there's different positions of leadership. Ride me, it's all about her. She doesn't want to build a relationship.
Hey,
So I was coming from a
this
really
horse sounds like a
ego.
husband. But Julie, are you an accountant as well?
No.
Oh, you're not an accountant as well.
I was a bit too vocal with that. No, wasn't I? And there's now a lot of neuroscience and research that shows the power of being with animals, in particular with horses, and how that can improve your leadership skills.
What was this? I vaguely remembered it. What was the scandal about?
Yeah, so it was Enron. So we were auditors to a global oil giant. When I came out of university, I managed to flukily get my first job working in the Caribbean. And but I was told when I was about 16 to get a proper job.
What did you first do? Like, I mean, I don't know. Should we start from school? I don't know how far back it is. But what did you want
we might be there a long time if we start when I started at school. I'm very old now.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur Insights. And this week's guest, we got Julie Felton, who's a leadership performance developer. Am I right, Julie, saying that?
Yeah, I'm a leadership performance specialist, so focus on helping leaders create high performance teams. So thank you for inviting me to the podcast.
It looks like we're gonna have a lot of fun in this podcast already. I can just
we
tell.
Will.
So Julie, you're doing this performance thing, and how long have you been doing that? Or this?
Oh, well, isn't that always such $1 million question, Peter, right?
Because it's a general question that I ask everybody anyway. How long?
I know. And I think as many entrepreneurs and your audience probably are aware, sometimes the business we set up isn't the business we end up doing, right? So I've been in business for about, 12, 14 years now. But when I first started out, I was doing something quite different to what I'm doing nowadays. And the business has evolved and adapted over the years. And particularly COVID made quite a big difference to the business. And I had to make quite a few pivots and changes during that time. So, so been in business for about 12 years, but not always doing the same thing, although always had the same theme.
Okay. Well, let's take steps backwards and find out what you did before you got into this then. What did you first do? Like, I mean, I don't know, should we start from school? I don't know how far back it is. But what did you want
we might be there a long time if we start when I started at school. I'm very old now.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Listen, from the ages of, from school, what did you want to do? Let's just go for it.
Oh, well, so that's a great question. What did I want to do and what did I actually do? So when I was young, my mum took me horse riding when I was about 8 or 9. And so what I first always wanted to do was be a riding instructor and teach kids how to ride. And my passion is horses. And I'm sure that will come out while we're talking later on. But I was told when I was about 16 to get a proper job. And maybe some of our listeners can relate to that. You've got a passion and a dream that you want to do, and you get it quashed by your parents who say, no, you can't do that. So I was very fortunate when I was younger, we traveled a lot. So I decided to go and work in the hotel industry. So my degree was in hotel management.
Oh, wow.
And I was very fortunate that I did part of my training in America. So I lived and worked in America for a while. And so when I came out of university, I managed to flukily get my first job working in the Caribbean in a hotel. Not too shabby.
Which part of the Caribbean was that?
I was in the US Virgin Islands with a company called Rock Resorts. Yeah, really nice. Right. And I went down there just after Hurricane Hugo had hit. So we were like rebuilding the hotel and reopening it. So I worked in the hotel industry in many famous hotels around the world, including the Gleneagles Hotel up in Scotland, the big golfing resort.
Yeah.
And then I got headhunted to go and work at a hotel consultancy company. And I went in there and I set up and helped them develop a hotel research team. And then I was headhunted into Arthur Andersen, which at the time was one of the top 5 accountancy firms in the world.
Indeed.
I was given the opportunity to be what would be called now an intrapreneur. So I was brought in, I was allowed to set up all my own division and my own business unit, but within the structure of a large corporate. And I run that business for about 15 years. And during that time, Arthur Andersen actually as a company imploded. We got involved in a big scandal that resulted in the whole company closing down. So I then moved to Deloitte, who bought
Julie, what was this? I vaguely remember it. What was the scandal about? Arthur Andersen?
Yeah, so it was Enron. So we were auditors to a global oil giant in Houston called Enron.
Right.
And they had been a little inappropriate in their accounts, I think is what we would say.
That's right.
And the firm was indicted about being an accomplice in that.
Fraudulent.
And as a but that's what they thought at the time. And of course, as you can imagine, all of our clients were like, we can't we can no longer have our auditors being an accountancy firm that's got a question mark over it. What does that say about our business? So all of our clients left. Years later, actually, the firm was exonerated from any malpractice. But of course, by that time, the whole firm had disappeared.
Yeah.
So, the interesting time.
You worked and then you moved on to, because you said you moved on somewhere else from the.
Yeah, so what happened was Arthur Andersen was effectively just split up and loads of different companies bought different areas. And in the UK, the whole business unit was acquired by Deloitte. So then I worked for Deloitte, another large accountancy firm, doing the same thing, still running my business unit. And eventually Deloitte decided many years afterwards that it was a non-core function for them. So they sold the business unit. And then that's at a time when then I decided I wanted a change. I'd sort of grown this business from an idea on a piece of paper to the global market leader. I then sold it for them and I was looking for other challenges. But maybe some of listeners also can relate to this. I hadn't actually intended on setting up my own business. I'd never gone out and said, one day I want to be a business owner. But it was in sort of 2010 when we were in the financial crash. And there were no other opportunities out there. And so I ended up setting up my own business because I couldn't get a job.
But Julie, are you an accountant as well?
No.
Oh, you're not an accountant as well.
I was a bit too vocal with that. No, wasn't I?
I was going to say, you'll be rather a lively accountant, if you know what I'm saying, because they're normally kind of no, I can't say that. I am an accountant.
No.
Anyway, but so you ended up, Deloitte's gone. Now it's back to you. What did you do?
So when I had been I'd been at Deloitte, they'd actually given me a business coach while I was there to help me in developing my leadership skills and leading the team. So they were a bit surprised when, as a result of my coaching, I decided to take a sabbatical from the business for a year. And I was very fortunate in that the company allowed people to take sabbaticals. And that was really designed for people coming in, trainee accountants. You come out of university, they did all their training, and then they had the bug to travel. So they allowed people to take a sabbatical. So there I am in my mid-30s going, I'd like a sabbatical, please. And they had to give one to me.
Yeah.
And I traveled the world and I spent time in Africa and at horse rescue in America. And during that time, I was like, I don't know that I want to keep doing this anymore. So when the business was sold, I decided that I would set up on my own and do my own thing. So that's how eventually I did set up my business. And in the first instance, actually, I was working with horse owners, helping them to develop a better relationship with their horse.
Please tell us about some of the experiences that you've had with some of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the clients that come and work with me always describe the experiences as life-changing and transformative. And let me give you some examples of that. We've worked with teams where, as a result of them all coming to work with the horses, they've made their teams much more cohesive and effective, and that's resulted in them turning around underperforming business divisions. I've had leaders who, once they understand the models of leadership that we can learn from horses, all of a sudden understand that they don't have to lead the business from the front, and there's different positions of leadership. And that actually, as a result of that, they can lead from behind and empower their team members to take a lot more responsibility. So we've seen people get promoted. I was just with a former client last week, and as a result, excuse me, and as a result of what happened with the horses, she's now set up her own business. So that's a massive change. She went and invested and purchased a company and did that. So I think that I understand why sometimes people struggle to join the dots about the power of partnering with the horses, because it is so immersive and it's so experiential. But I truly believe that we live in a world right now where we are so disconnected from each other, and we do everything with AI, with technology. And actually what we're creating is experiences which go back to creating human to human connection, human to animal connection, and really teaching people how to reconnect to themselves. And by being out in nature, that really changes people's perspective on what's going on within their business. And I think that's what we really need right now, are leaders who are prepared to embrace a new way of doing things. And I believe that nature and horses have for us the blueprint there of how to do that. But I soon realized that actually horses were never the problem. It was always owners that were the problem in any type of relationship. So I then pivoted to working with leaders and partnering with the horses to help leaders develop their skills in teamwork, in effective communication, in emotional intelligence through partnering with the horses. And that's just one part of my business today. And then I just do more general leadership and team development programs for companies.
All right, let me just slow you down here. I'm struggling to relate how horses, the team leading the horses. Please explain. Explain.
Yeah.
Come into the equation.
Yeah. So, well, to be honest, it wasn't something I ever knew about. I stumbled across a gentleman who actually did this work. And there's now a lot of neuroscience and research that shows the power of being with animals, and in particular with horses, and how that can improve your leadership skills. Because when you're with the horse doesn't sugarcoat the feedback. The horse is looking for an inspiring, compelling, motivating leader that they want to go with. Somebody who's going to keep them safe and who has clarity and certainty. And isn't that actually what we all want as a team member? So I set up exercises, and, unlike your team member who won't say, Julia, you're not a great boss. The horse just stands there and won't move, for example, and you soon get the feedback. And what I realized was that my horses had been teaching me the best business lessons I ever needed to learn. But I didn't know that at the time until I discovered this body of work. So let me share for you an example, Peter.
Please.
When I was in the corporate world, I had my horse, somebody was looking after him, during the week for me, because I was commuting to London from my home, hour 45 minutes, in work all day, not back till sort of 9 o'clock at night, on that hamster wheel of just going. So I get to the weekend and you have all these jobs to do, right? Like looking after your house and the washing, the laundry and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I then decided to go and ride my horse. And I walked into the field going, on a mission. Yep. And my horse is like, nah, that doesn't work for me. And I didn't catch him for a whole summer. I didn't catch him. Even the best bribery with organic carrots with big green tops.
I wasn't there. I don't want none of it. Huh?
Yeah.
Is it because you left me for a week? You ignored me. I don't want you again. So basically,
and actually,
go on.
sorry, let me just explain a little bit more. Sorry to interrupt, but so actually what he was telling me was when I walked into the field those days, it was all about me. I had no empathy for him and what he wanted. It was all about, this is my miserable owner, Julia. She wants to ride me. It's all about her. She doesn't want to build a relationship.
Hey,
so I was coming from a
this horse sounds like a husband.
Right, yeah.
Go on.
So I was coming from a really egocentric place into that relationship. And my horse was like, I don't tolerate that. But what was fascinating was months and months later, my team told me I was scary and intimidating.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And it was because I was just so singularly focused on getting work done in the business that I wasn't spending much time engaging in chit chat with people in the corridor. And yet we know relationships are what makes business work. And I wasn't spending any time in building that connection and relationships with my team members and other colleagues I worked with. So I was seen as quite assertive and aggressive and, unapproachable. And my horse was telling me that by running away.
Basically, your horse is a great bonding tool and also a great judge. That's what you're saying to me. Your horse is a great judge. I never knew that. So. Hey, that could explain. Do you know sometimes at the Queen's Guards, like you got some people go up to stroke the horse, and then sometimes the horse like get out of my way and bites them or kicks them. Listen, unless the horse are great fortune tellers. But anyway, so you've taken this horse thing and then you developed it into a training program or something?
Yeah, so I run various training programs for companies. They can either be standalone 1 or 2 day events. And more often now we incorporate the horses into 6 or 9 month leadership programs where the teams will come out and work with the horses maybe at the beginning. Then we'll do a number of classroom sessions, developing leadership skills in terms of emotional intelligence, things like how to have difficult conversations, how to engage in coaching, how to collaborate together, how to build trust within teams. So we'll do numbers of different modules, and then they'll come back with the horses and start implementing what they've learned, and they'll actually do it in live time with the horses and see what's happened. And it's always fascinating.
Yeah, of course it is. It must be. How do people feel when you first tell them that they're going to be training with horses? But it's
interesting. It depends on people's frame of reference. If people are much more outdoorsy and enjoy or have been around horses, they're totally up for it. But for a lot of people, I totally recognize it's massively out of their comfort zone.
Right.
And I always say to the people, just embrace it and come with and follow the flow and come with it. Because what I do know to be true is the people that are most skeptical when they arrive are the ones that I can never get to leave at the end of the day.
Oh, okay, good.
They've overcome such a massive barrier, and they were so out of their comfort zone. But I say this is just a metaphor for what life is like nowadays, because we live in a world that is so uncertain. We never really know what's going to happen, and we might go to the same workplace every day, but things never turn out as we planned. And so I'm just kind of lifting the ante on that, taking them to a venue that they've never been before, working in a situation they've never been in before. But that's so great for helping team members develop the skills to lead through uncertainty, which is what we need in the workplace today. We need more people to be able to lead through and navigate the uncertainty that just exists in the business world today as the norm.
Interesting. So, okay, so someone like me, say if I told you I was scared of horses, but I want to do this course, how would you get me to, or persuade me to, like, say, Peter, let's do this and it'll be fine at the end? How are you going to persuade me?
Well, I don't think I ever persuade people. I think you've got to have enough curiosity to want to come along and explore it. And what we do throughout the day is that we increase the level of interaction with the horses throughout the day. So the first exercise we don't even do with the horses, because we need to get people comfortable and feeling psychologically safe in the space that we're in. And then throughout the day, we just lift the ante about the more and more work you do with the horses. And it's challenged by choice. People can do whatever they want to, you know, as much or as little as they want to. But my experience is usually that people, once they realize that, you know, the horses and my horses are very safe, they want to engage, and they see everyone else doing it. And I don't know whether they get a bit of FOMO and they're like, I want to that too.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's just incredible.
And how long have you been running this business?
So this has been about 10 years, probably. Yeah.
Okay, 10 years.
So
and what sort of clientele is attracted to your business?
It's very, very mixed. In the UK, this particular type of leadership development isn't that well known. It's much more advanced in the US. So I do have a partnership with a company in the US called Teaching Horse, and with them I work with international clients, and they are big corporates that we work with. In the UK, it's a mix of smaller businesses. I usually say, though, it's not really a type of business. It's a psychographic of a business. So they're businesses that I describe as bold and brave. They're run by trailblazing leaders, people who are prepared to do something different and be innovative and be disruptive. So they're not the sort of people that, you know, you can use Sales Navigator for on LinkedIn, right? And go, I'd like to find, you know, this type of leader. It's an energy and a vibe that these leaders have. And they're the ones that tend to find me out. And they're like, oh, yeah, we want to do something different and innovative, Julia. And we think you've got a solution for us, which I know I do.
Brilliant. How many horses do you have?
I have 3 now. Unfortunately, I just lost one last week. Okay. Yeah, so
and
3 now.
They like they're probably like family. They become. How long have you had the horses? You said.
So the one, unfortunately, that passed away last week, I'd had for nearly 25 years. And he was the reason I set up the business. He was my first ever horse. I bought him when I was at Arthur Andersen going through that Enron scandal, because I'd always wanted a horse, but always had thought my corporate career was, you know, so vital to me. And when we were going through that Enron crisis, what I realized was that was the time I realized a corporate wasn't going to look after me. And, you know, I had to make my own choices for my life about what I wanted to happen. So I decided to buy my own horse back then. So I've had him for many, many years, and he was 32. So he was a good old age. But still, it was a bit of a shock when we lost him. So, but yeah, he was like family, and he is family.
What is the horse's lifespan? Like, we know
it kind of depends. It depends on what they do. 32 is a good age, you know. Mid-20s probably is more normal. But I think, you know, yeah, they're like people. It depends on the lifestyle they lead, right? You know, if you're a racehorse, maybe, you know, and you're an athlete, you know, all of a sudden you're not doing that anymore. Maybe, you know, you find retirement more difficult, and maybe you pass away earlier. Who knows? You know, it just depends on their life.
Okay. So tell us now about your business and what you want to do with your business.
I'll share with you the big dream if I can, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So my dream has always been to create a retreat center. Right. And at the retreat center, we would run leadership development and team working seminars and workshops for business leaders. And that would fund the rehabilitation of horses that were no longer fit for purpose. So in my herd of horses, they're all rescue horses. And they were horses that 2 of them were abandoned on the motorway at 9 months old. And the other one was an ex-race horse that was no longer able to be ridden, and so was going to be put down because he was no longer fit for purpose. So I want to give these horses another life, another thing that they can do, because I think, just like people, so many of us have got hidden potential and we don't know about it. So my horse Toby, who I really set the business up for, I could no longer ride him, but I knew he had masses to offer people, and he did, and he became my lead coach in the team. And he was incredible, and clients loved him, and he impacted hundreds and hundreds of people's lives. And so I just want to create this little circular economy, Peter, where, you know, the business leaders come, they receive training and mentoring and coaching, but that funds the rehabilitation of some of these horses that wouldn't maybe have a great life because people would say, I can't ride it anymore, I don't want that horse. And then they support each other and create a little circular economy.
How do you actually train the horses then?
We know you train the horses.
Yeah, to respond to the people. I mean, how do you? What is the interaction? Wow, I can't. Yeah, you see what I mean? I'm like
videos. So I don't train the horses, and I think this is really important to understand because we want the horses to act with their natural instincts. Otherwise, it's contrived, right?
Right.
So I keep my horses very naturally. You know, they live out in fields all the time. They live as a herd. They all live together. The only thing I really have to make sure is that the horses are, you know, comfortable being around people.
Okay.
But, you know, even the most robust horse, you know, if somebody's energy is really dysfunctional, you know, they're going to have a meltdown. Then they're not going to enjoy that, and they're going to want to get away from it. But so will other people as well. The horse is just more expressive in terms of doing it.
Well, we've seen that. We've seen incidents that happen like that with the guards horses that run off because they were startled by something. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I get that.
Yeah. So the horses are looking for trust from people, and they will let you lead them, but only, as I said, if you can be a really compelling leader that has clarity of focus, a direction, you know what's going on, you're paying attention. So many leaders aren't really paying attention to what's going on around them, their team members and the environment. And if you don't know from the horse's perspective where that mountain lion is, who might come and eat them in the wild, then he's not going to trust you to keep him safe. But actually, neither will your team. Your team want you to be aware of where are the competitive challenges on the horizon, what's going on, you know, where are the things that might take our business down. Your team are also looking for that level of psychological safety from you as a leader.
Wow, I mean, it sounds so compelling, right? The horse, it sounds so interesting that, you know, I would say to myself, man, this is worth doing just for curiosity's sake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is the course then? So how long is the course for you to get the proper feedback?
Yeah, so I mean, we do different lengths of courses. We do half days, full days, 2 days. It really depends on the business outcomes that the organizations want. Sometimes I run some open programs as well, where you know, we just get a group of individual business owners together that come and enjoy the experience and the learning from the horses. So and as I said earlier on, we also integrate that within 6 to 9 month coaching, mentoring, leadership development programs as well.
Have you ever had some bad incidences? I can't say the word.
No, never have, because it's my responsibility as the facilitator to manage the energy of the group and be aware of what's going on. And that I've never had a bad experience because I'm always really present and paying attention to what's going on. And so I notice if a horse is getting a little bit upset with what's going on. So, for example, just last week, one of my horses, you know, he's still grieving the loss of his friend. Okay. All of a sudden in the session, he's like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I was like, okay, need to remove him. But just like people, right? Sometimes we all have a bad day and we don't need to be there. But that's my responsibility as a facilitator, to be able to read the environment on what's going on. Absolutely. And so keep everybody safe. But I'll share with you, if I may, how I learned to do that, because I think you might enjoy this.
I will.
So I don't know if you've ever had that aha moment. I'm sure you have, where somebody asks you a question and it's just that knockout blow question that changes your life. Have you ever experienced that?
Of course. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. So I had that when I was out in Africa, and I was sitting around a campfire with some people, and I was at an elephant conservation project, and somebody asked me, who's been swimming with dolphins? And I was like, yeah, I have, putting up my hand. And then this was the killer question though, Peter. What was it like? And I have no recollection. I know I went for my friend's 30th birthday. We swam with dolphins in Mexico, but I can't tell you what the experience was like. So what I realized at that point was I was going through life ticking things off a bucket list, but never really being present and experiencing them. So in my radical way that I am, I decided to go and train to be a safari guide. And I went and lived in the African bush for 4 months because I figure if you need to learn how to get present, you might as well go and live in the bush, because if you don't pay attention, you'll be some lion's dinner.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. I get it. And so you want the business, you want it to be global, I presume. You want it to be global?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's great people coming to Yorkshire, where I'm based in the UK, because then I can partner with my own horses. But I don't have to just partner with my own horses. So like last year, we were in Paris delivering a workshop. This year, we're going to the Netherlands again. We've been in Norway. We've been in Italy. I've got colleagues that I work with in the US. We've also got venues out in Australia and somewhere in Singapore. So, we can find venues to meet clients' requirements wherever they are in the world.
So, but do you bring the horses with you?
No.
These are horses. I was going to say, that's an expensive travel.
That would be an expensive travel bill, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So anyway, do you have a price range? What could someone, a company, maybe a small company, wanting to build a team? They come to you and say, "Look, I want to try something." Is there a price range, or how do you gauge this?
It's very, very bespoke, because it depends on what the clients need, where we are, whether we have to hire a venue or not. So it's very, very customized for what clients require. So it's very difficult for me to answer that question, because it really depends on the business outcomes, the location where we've got to go, how much we might need to travel to get there, what we might have to pay for venues and everything else. So it's amazing value for money at the end of the day. And it depends as well what we do around it, because a number of clients, will work with personality profiling or assessments and do that alongside the horse work, or other types of workshops, and combine everything together. So it really depends what the package is, and that's all based on the outcomes the client needs and the results that they need.
Go on. Where can we find you, Julia? What's your social medias or your handles?
Yeah. So you can find me. My website is businesshorsepower.com. So business and horse and power .com. You find me on LinkedIn as Julia Felton, on Instagram as Julia M. Felton, Facebook under Business Horsepower. So either Business Horsepower or Julia Felton, you find me under. You'll also find on my website copies of my books. So I've written some books that help explain what the experiences are like with the horses, and what I've learned from the horses about becoming a better leader, and some of the leadership models that I use as a result of that, and how nature can teach it.
So what's the name of your books?
So one of my books is called Unbridled Success: How the Secret Lives of Horses Impacts Leadership, Teamwork and Communication. And the other book is called Unbridled Business, and that's teaching us about what we can learn from nature's wisdom to reinvent leadership, because the current leadership paradigms, in my view, are only fit for purpose for the industrial era. They're no longer fit for purpose for the 21st century. And I think nature has all the answers on how we need to structure and run businesses in the 21st century, and much more of an ecosystem mindset and modality than we've ever seen before.
And where can they purchase these books?
Both books are available on Amazon, amazon.com, amazon.co.uk, or Amazon in your local country. And you can also find them on my website as well.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Julie Felton. She started horse riding when she was 9 years old, and she's still, at her age, which we don't know, but she's very young, into horses, and that was her passion. You are one person who's actually had a career before, as a young girl, you didn't even know, and it's developed into what you have now. That's a great journey, absolutely great journey, and it's been a pleasure to have you on Entrepreneur Insights.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Julie. Take care of yourself. Goodbye. Ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe for more.